Can you please wash me human? The alien woman entered my room in the HFY Stories. Best HFY Stories. Ethan had always liked quiet evenings. The colony station floated silently above the green and blue planet, the stars outside the window shining like tiny diamonds scattered on black velvet. It was late, and he had finally finished his engineering work for the day. He leaned back in his chair, letting the hum of the life support system wash over him. Life on the research station was mostly routine, but it had its own charm. Small victories, fixing a broken console, recalibrating sensors, or simply getting a perfect cup of synth coffee, made the solitude enjoyable. He was reaching for the cup when he heard a faint sound, like soft footsteps. At first, he thought it was the echo of the station's machinery, but then he heard it again, this time closer, coming from his bedroom. Ethan frowned. He lived alone. The station had security protocols, and unauthorized entry should have triggered alarms. Slowly he rose from his chair, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. "Hello," he called, trying to keep his voice calm. The answer was not what he expected. A soft, melodic voice, almost musical, spoke back. "Can you please help me?" Ethan froze. The voice didn't sound human. He turned the corner of the room and froze again. Standing there was a woman, but not like any woman he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered slightly, reflecting the dim light in hues of soft violet and silver. Her eyes were larger than human eyes, luminous and shifting colors as if they contained tiny galaxies. Her hair floated slightly around her head, almost as if it were suspended in water, even though the air was normal. She was humanoid, yes, but entirely alien in appearance. I'm Ethan," he managed to say. Who are you?" She took a step forward, her movements graceful and careful. "My name is Lyra," she said. "I am lost and I need help. Can you wash me?" Ethan blinked. "Wash you?" he repeated slowly, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "Yes," she said softly, her voice tinged with embarrassment, even though it was the most unusual thing he had ever heard. "I do not understand your customs. I require assistance." For a moment, Ethan just stared. Part of him wanted to panic. Part of him wanted to call security, but another part, the part that had spent years learning to adapt, to fix, and to solve problems, kicked in. He could not ignore this. If this being was truly lost and asking for help, it was human to assist. "All right," he said finally, trying to sound confident. "Let's figure this out." Lyra's eyes brightened slightly. "Thank you, human." Ethan moved carefully, gesturing toward the small shower in his room. "We have a water station here. It's not exactly what you might expect, but it will work." She nodded and stepped closer. Ethan noticed how delicate her features were, how her skin seemed to glow softly under the dim lights. He quickly realized he needed to be careful. She was not fragile in a physical sense, but any sudden movement could startle her. "Do you know how to use this?" he asked, gesturing to the shower. Lyra shook her head. "No, I do not. We have different methods where I come from." Ethan took a deep breath and began explaining, using simple words. "First, water comes from here." He pressed a button and a stream of warm water appeared. "Then you can move under it slowly. Soap is here." He held up a small bottle of cleanser specially designed for humans. "It might work for you." She studied it carefully, touching it lightly with her fingers. "Strange texture, but usable," she murmured. Ethan helped guide her gently toward the shower. He maintained a respectful distance, speaking calmly to help her understand. "It's okay, nothing will hurt you. Just try to stand here and let the water flow." Lyra took a deep breath and stepped under the water. Her skin glowed faintly as the droplets touched her, and she gasped softly, not in fear but in wonder. "Warm and strange but comforting," she said. Ethan couldn't help but smile. "Good, I'm glad it works. Now soap gently." The process was slow. Ethan guided her hands to help her understand, showing her how to move and rinse. Every step was filled with curiosity from her side and patience from his. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. She asked questions about everything. Why humans used water this way, why soap foamed, why the air temperature mattered. Ethan answered each one, realizing that this exchange was as much about learning as it was about hygiene. After some time, Lyra stepped out of the shower. Her hair, now damp, clung slightly to her head in strands of silver and violet. Ethan handed her a towel and she wrapped it around herself with a grace that was almost otherworldly. "Thank you, human," she said. Her voice was calm now, less worried, more reflective. "You are kind. Not all humans would help." Ethan shrugged, trying to hide his own amazement. Most try if they can, you just need someone willing to help. Lyra's gaze lingered on him, her eyes swirling with colors he could not name. You have courage, she said, and ingenuity. I am impressed. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. Compliments from a human were one thing, but from someone who was clearly from another world, it carried weight. Thank you, he said softly. There was a pause. Then Lyra took a step back, her tone shifting slightly. I did not come here for bathing alone. My people, they are in danger. I need human help. You are the first I could reach. Ethan's mind raced. Danger, alien civilization. Him. This was far beyond anything he had expected tonight. Tell me what happened, he asked, already moving toward a small terminal. Perhaps they could communicate with her home world or at least understand the situation. Lyra hesitated, then began to explain. She spoke of a distant empire, the Zythurians, who had grown powerful and aggressive, conquering weaker worlds. Her people, the Velari, were peaceful and creative, but their technology was not built for war. The Zythurians sought to control them. She had fled, guided by a beacon of hope, the idea that humans could assist her, that humans were resourceful and clever enough to survive and outthink an enemy stronger than themselves. Ethan listened intently, taking mental notes. His mind, trained in engineering and problem-solving, began to turn over ideas. There were ways to use their environment, their technology, and even human unpredictability to their advantage. Humans might not be the strongest, but they were clever, and sometimes cleverness was enough. Lyra's eyes followed him closely as he spoke, her expression a mixture of admiration and relief. I believed humans could be allies. I am glad my hope was correct. They sat together for a while, talking quietly. Ethan explained how the station worked, what resources they had, and what was possible. Lyra asked questions endlessly, fascinated by human ingenuity and simplicity. For her, everything about the human world was novel. The way doors opened, the way light could be adjusted, even the way Ethan had arranged his room. It was a reminder that humans were small in the galaxy but filled with creativity and resilience. Hours passed quickly. Outside, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the small dramas unfolding in a tiny room above a distant planet. Ethan realized that the night had changed him. The arrival of Lyra was unexpected, unsettling, but it had also opened a door to something extraordinary, a chance to show the galaxy what humans were capable of, not just in technology or strength, but in kindness, ingenuity, and courage. As Lyra finally prepared to rest, she looked at Ethan with a soft glow in her eyes. Tomorrow we need strategy. Human cleverness will be key. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He had no idea how much danger awaited them or how far this alliance would stretch. But he knew one thing: humans could rise to the challenge. They always had, and he would not fail. The room grew quiet. Outside, the stars blinked. Inside, two beings, human and alien, sat side by side, beginning a partnership that might change the fate of worlds. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Ethan smiled. It had started with something as simple as helping someone wash. Yet sometimes, the smallest acts were the beginning of the greatest adventures. The next morning, the station was quiet, bathed in the soft light of a rising sun over the planet's surface. Ethan awoke first, the hum of the life support system greeting him like an old friend. Lyra was already awake, sitting cross-legged near the window, her luminous eyes tracing the horizon. She seemed smaller somehow, not in size but in presence, a creature who had traveled across space, seeking help, and now studying this strange human world with awe. Ethan poured himself a cup of synth coffee, the familiar bitter aroma grounding him. Morning, he said quietly. Lyra turned, tilting her head in curiosity. Morning, human, we begin planning. Yes, Ethan said, sitting across from her. He took a deep breath. We need to understand what we're up against. You said your people, the Velari, are being hunted by the Zythurians? Lyra nodded, her hands folding neatly in her lap. Yes, the Zythurians are strong. They have weapons and ships that can destroy entire cities. My people cannot fight directly. We are peaceful creators. Ethan leaned forward, his mind already turning over possibilities. Peaceful doesn't mean helpless, he said firmly. Humans, we survive because we think, we use our brains, we adapt, that's how we can help. Lyra's eyes widened and she smiled faintly. Yes, I see, human cleverness is powerful. You may succeed where others cannot. Ethan stood and walked to the terminal, pulling up maps of the nearby sectors. First, we need information. We can't fight them blindly. Do you know where they might strike next? Lyra approached, her movements graceful. They follow signals. I escaped because I chose path they would not expect. They may track me and anyone who helps me. Ethan nodded. Then first we hide. And then we think. He began outlining a plan. The human way was simple. Gather knowledge, use the environment, improvise. He showed Lyra the station's energy shields, its small fleet of drones, and the automated turrets placed for emergencies. We can use these, he said. Not to fight directly, but to confuse them, slow them down, trap them. Lyra listened carefully, absorbing every detail. Interesting, humans make use of surroundings, clever. My people do not think like this. Ethan smiled. That's why we survive, we're unpredictable. Hours passed as they worked. Ethan taught Lyra how to operate some of the drones, how to manage energy levels, and how to communicate silently with him across the station. She learned quickly, her intelligence remarkable, even if her body moved differently. Every time she succeeded, her luminous eyes glimmered with delight, and Ethan felt a sense of pride. Not just for himself, but for humanity. Humans are strong in thinking, she said at one point, almost to herself. You find solutions where others see only danger. Ethan nodded, understanding what she meant. It's not strength, he said. It's persistence. You don't give up. You keep trying until something works. As the day went on, Ethan realized that teaching Lyra was only part of the challenge. The other part was keeping the station secure. He ran simulations, setting up traps and decoys, placing sensors that could detect even the smallest movement. The Zythurians were technologically advanced, but humans had one advantage: they could improvise. And sometimes that made all the difference. Lyra watched silently for a while, her expression thoughtful. Then she spoke. Human, I have a device. It can detect Zythurian ships, but it needs energy beyond my reach here. Ethan's interest piqued. Show me. From a small bag she carried, Lyra produced a device no bigger than a human hand. It glowed faintly, its surface etched with alien symbols. It can warn us if they approach, she explained. Ethan examined it carefully. This could be a game changer, he said. If we combine this with the station's sensors, we could detect them before they arrive. That gives us time. Together, they worked to integrate her device with the station's systems. It was not easy. The alien technology was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. But human creativity is flexible, and after hours of trial and error, the device hummed in sync with the station. A soft alert system now pulsed across their screens. Lyra's eyes glimmered. We are ready, human, Ethan smiled. Almost, but we also need practice. We need to be ready for anything. They spent the rest of the day running drills, moving through the station silently, communicating in hand signals and subtle gestures. Ethan noticed something remarkable. Lyra adapted almost immediately. Her mind, though alien, understood strategy, timing, and improvisation. Together, they were a team, a human and an alien, ready to face challenges far beyond ordinary comprehension. By evening, exhaustion set in. The stars outside the window were bright and cold, and Ethan realized that he had not felt this alive in years. The presence of Lyra, the danger that loomed, and the work they had done, it all stirred something deep inside him. Humans were small in the galaxy, yes, but their spirit could shine brighter than the largest stars. Lyra turned to him, her voice soft. Human, you teach me patience, ingenuity, courage. I am grateful. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. And you remind me that even in a vast galaxy, someone might need our help, and that we can make a difference. A sudden beep from the integrated device made them both tense. Ethan rushed to the screen. A faint blip appeared at the edge of the station's detection field. They're coming, he said quietly, his heart quickening. Lyra's eyes widened. They sense me, human. We must prepare. Ethan moved swiftly, activating defensive systems and rerouting power to the station's shields. Drones were deployed, moving silently around the perimeter. He handed Lyra a small control panel. This helps guide them. We can use it to confuse them, make them think the station is elsewhere. Lyra nodded, her hands steady as she took the panel. Human, your cleverness is remarkable. The blip grew larger, and Ethan realized that the Zythurians were approaching faster than expected. But he felt no fear, only determination. Humans thrived when the odds were against them. They adapted, they improvised, they survived. And now that survival depended on their combined skills. Hours passed in tense preparation. Ethan and Lyra moved silently through the station, checking every system, adjusting energy levels, and running final drills. Their teamwork was seamless, almost instinctive. Each small victory, drones correctly deployed, shields at optimal strength, devices synchronized, was a testament to human ingenuity and alien adaptability working together. Finally, the first signs of the Zythurian fleet appeared on the screens. Ships larger than any human vessel, sleek and menacing, moved with precision toward the station. Lyra's device pulsed rapidly, warning of multiple points of attack. Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. "Remember," he said, his voice steady, "we don't fight them directly. We make them hesitate, we make them uncertain. We use our minds, not just our machines." Lyra nodded, her luminous eyes focused. "Yes, human, we will succeed together." The first Zythurian ship reached the station. Ethan triggered the first decoy. Lights flashed and drones moved in unexpected patterns, drawing the enemy's attention. The Zythurian ship paused, scanning for threats that were not really there. Ethan's heart pounded, but he felt alive. Lyra watched, impressed. "Human, your tactics are brilliant." Ethan allowed himself a small smile. "We're just being humans." The rest of the evening passed in a tense game of strategy. Every move they made forced the Zythurians to react, slowing their advance. By midnight, the fleet had been delayed, confused, and partially forced to retreat. The station was still intact, and Lyra's device confirmed no immediate threats remained. Breathing heavily, Ethan collapsed into a chair. "We did it for now." Lyra approached, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Yes, human, together we are strong. Your people are remarkable. I am honored to know you." Ethan looked at her, feeling the truth in her words. Humans were small, fragile in body, but immense in spirit. That spirit had kept civilizations alive, had built worlds, and now, perhaps, could even defend against empires that seemed unstoppable. Outside, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the struggles of small beings within the station. But inside, Ethan and Lyra knew something important. They had begun a partnership that could change the course of events far beyond their immediate understanding. Humans and Velari, together, might be able to face anything the galaxy threw at them. Ethan leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. "We need rest, but tomorrow we continue." Lyra nodded, her glow softening as she looked out the window. "Yes, human, tomorrow we plan and endure. Together we will overcome." And as the station settled into quiet hums and soft mechanical rhythms, Ethan realized something fundamental. Humans survived not because they were the strongest, but because they were clever, adaptable, and courageous. And now, with Lyra by his side, he was ready to show the galaxy just what that meant. The station had quieted after the tense night, but Ethan knew better than to relax. The Zythurians were not ordinary opponents. They were relentless, precise, and efficient. Every human instinct in him urged vigilance. Lyra moved silently beside him, her luminous eyes scanning every monitor and sensor as though she could feel the presence of the enemy across the void of space. "Human," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper, "they will return. Stronger, they will try to overwhelm us. We must prepare fully." Ethan nodded, running his hand over the control panel. "Yes, they underestimated us once. We can't let that happen again. We need to be unpredictable, fast, and careful." Lyra tilted her head, considering. "Your human methods are strange but effective. I see why you survive in dangerous situations." Ethan smiled faintly. "It's not luck, it's thinking, adapting, and never giving up, and now we'll use all of that against them." The first step, Ethan decided, was intelligence gathering. The previous encounter had taught them that raw power could not defeat the Zythurians. They needed knowledge. Lyra brought out a small device from her bag, the same one that detected Zythurian ships. Ethan worked to integrate it further into the station's systems, creating a larger network of sensors that could scan long distances. As they worked, Lyra's curiosity surfaced again. "Human, why do you risk yourself for others? Your species small, fragile, yet you confront danger willingly." Ethan paused, considering. "Because we care, because we protect what matters, and because sometimes being clever is stronger than being strong. We adapt, we find a way, we survive, and in doing so we help others survive too." Lyra's eyes glimmered with admiration. "I see now, human spirit is powerful far beyond physical strength." By midday, the system was ready. Ethan activated the enhanced sensor network, and the displays filled with distant blips of ships and energy signatures. The Zythurians had returned, their fleet larger than before, moving with a precision that was both terrifying and beautiful. "They are coming faster," Lyra said, her voice calm but tense. "Human, your plan must be flawless." Ethan nodded. "We won't fight them head-on, that's impossible, but we can slow them, confuse them, make them waste resources, and strike at weak points." He guided Lyra to a console connected to the station's drone network. "These drones, they're not weapons. Not really. They're distractions. We'll create decoys, send false signals, and use the station itself to mislead them. They think they control the situation, but they don't." Lyra's hands moved quickly over the controls, her alien mind adapting rapidly. "Interesting, human tactics like chess, but real life," Ethan smiled. "Exactly, and in chess, it's often the smallest piece that makes the biggest difference." As the fleet approached, the first wave of Zythurian ships activated scanning beams. Ethan initiated the decoy sequence. Lights flashed along the station's hull, drones darted in unexpected patterns, and signals bounced across the monitors. The Zythurians hesitated, unsure which blips were real and which were tricks. Lyra watched, fascinated. "Human, you confuse them without direct attack, clever and effective." The first engagement was brief but critical. Small drones feigned attacks on the Zythurian sensors, causing the ships to split their formation. Ethan observed carefully, adjusting drone paths and energy pulses to maintain the illusion. Each move required precise timing. One mistake, and the enemy would detect the station's true position. Hours passed in tense coordination. Ethan and Lyra worked seamlessly, anticipating the enemy's reactions and adjusting strategies on the fly. The Zythurians were strong but predictable in their arrogance. They assumed a smaller species like humans would panic, but Ethan's calm, methodical actions defied their expectations. Lyra began to understand the depth of human ingenuity. "Your species uses mind over might. We Veleri rely on technology, but humans use thinking creatively to survive." Ethan nodded. "We're small, yes, but our creativity, our courage, that's what makes us strong." By evening, the station had successfully avoided direct confrontation. The Zythurian fleet was forced to retreat temporarily, frustrated by the deceptive tactics and the unyielding defenses. Ethan and Lyra allowed themselves a brief moment of relief. Lyra's glow softened as she looked at Ethan. "We did it, human. Your methods saved us again." Ethan rubbed his eyes, exhaustion settling into his muscles. "We're not done. They'll return. Next time they'll be smarter, faster. We have to be ready for anything." They spent the night analyzing data, studying the movements of the Zythurians and predicting possible strategies. Ethan realized that the next attack would be different. They would learn from their mistakes, and humans would have to anticipate changes in enemy behavior. Lyra observed quietly, occasionally pointing out details Ethan might have missed. "Human, your species observes details others overlook. This is why you survive when others fail." Ethan smiled faintly. "And you adapt quickly. Your intelligence, combined with human resourcefulness, makes us stronger together." As dawn approached, the station's sensors detected something unexpected. A small fleet, not part of the main Zythurian force, was approaching from an unusual angle. Ethan and Lyra exchanged a glance. "They're testing us," Ethan said quietly. "They're probing for weaknesses." Lyra nodded. "Then we set trap. They underestimate humans again." Ethan's mind raced. They had drones, decoys, and the station's defenses. But this probe fleet required a new tactic, something more daring, more human. He quickly outlined a plan, speaking in simple, clear instructions to Lyra. "We'll use the drones to split them up. Some drones will act as bait, drawing the ships into a false corridor. The rest will simulate a breach in the station's hull. They'll think they've found a weak point, but it's a trap." Lyra's eyes glimmered with understanding. "Clever human, very clever." The plan was set into motion. Drones moved like shadows, lights flashed along false corridors, and energy pulses created illusions of hull weaknesses. The Zythurians fell into the trap, sending ships toward the decoy breach. Ethan and Lyra watched the monitors, holding their breath. The first Zythurian ship fired at the false weak point, only to be caught in a controlled energy net, immobilized temporarily. Others tried to follow, but the drones' unpredictable movements created chaos among the enemy ranks. The small probe fleet was effectively neutralized without a direct fight. Lyra let out a soft breath. Human, this is amazing. Your species thinks in ways that defy expectation. Ethan leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. It's what humans do. We survive even when the odds are against us. We find a way, and we adapt. They spent the rest of the day reinforcing defenses, repairing drones, and preparing for the inevitable return of the main fleet. Every movement, every adjustment, was a testament to human creativity and perseverance. Lyra learned quickly, absorbing strategies and improvising alongside Ethan. Together, they became a force far greater than the sum of their parts. As night fell once again, Ethan and Lyra stood by the window, watching the stars stretch endlessly into space. "They will return," Lyra said softly, "but now we are ready. Humans are remarkable." Ethan smiled faintly. "We're just ourselves, but sometimes that's enough." Lyra nodded, her glow softening. "Yes, human, and together we are stronger. Your species proves that courage, intelligence, and determination can overcome even the greatest threats." Ethan looked at her, feeling a deep sense of pride, not just for himself, but for humanity. The Zythurians were powerful, but they had underestimated the strength of human creativity, teamwork, and determination. And as long as humans had the will to survive, they could face any challenge, even an empire that seemed unstoppable. The station was quiet now, but Ethan knew it would not remain so for long. The galaxy was vast, and danger was never far away. But he also knew something important. Humans were never truly alone. They could adapt, endure, and even inspire trust and alliance from beings across the stars. And with Lyra by his side, a being from a distant world who now believed in human ingenuity, Ethan felt ready for whatever the universe could throw at them. Outside, the stars shone brightly, indifferent to the struggles of small beings within the station. But inside, Ethan and Lyra had proven something important. Human cleverness, courage, and determination could face the impossible and win. The station remained tense as the first light of the planet's morning spilled across its hull. Ethan stood at the control panel, his eyes scanning the displays with sharp focus. Lyra hovered nearby, her glowing form reflecting the subtle colors of the rising sun. They had spent hours preparing, planning every possible scenario, and yet Ethan knew the real test was coming. "They are returning," Lyra said softly, her voice steady despite the tension. "The main fleet, human. They learned from previous mistakes. This will be harder." Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. "Yes, but harder doesn't mean impossible. We've learned from them too. And humans, we can adapt faster than they expect." The displays flickered as dozens of Zythurian ships approached the station, their formation precise, their speed deliberate. Ethan adjusted the sensor network, monitoring every blip and energy reading. He felt a familiar adrenaline surge, the thrill of danger tempered by knowledge, preparation, and determination. Lyra moved beside him. "Human, our previous tactics slowed them. Now we must strike strategically, not just defend." Ethan turned to her. "Exactly. We can't win by brute force, but we can force mistakes, we can create opportunities, we can turn their strength against them." Together, they reviewed the plans they had spent days refining. The station's drones would act as decoys and harassers, drawing ships into corridors lined with automated traps and energy nets. Lyra's device would detect weak points in the Zythurian formation, allowing precise countermeasures. And Ethan would coordinate every action, improvising when the unexpected inevitably occurred. The first Zythurian ships reached the station, and Ethan held his breath. "Initiate decoys," he said calmly. Lights flashed along the hull, drones darted unpredictably, and energy pulses created false corridors. The Zythurians hesitated, unsure which signals were real. Lyra's hands moved swiftly across her control panel. "Human, they are reacting. We must continue to guide them." Ethan watched as the decoys worked beautifully. The Zythurians split their fleet, some chasing false signals, others pausing to recalibrate their sensors. The station's automated systems activated energy nets, capturing smaller ships temporarily. Every move required precision, but the combination of human strategy and alien technology was proving effective. Hours passed in a tense dance of strategy and improvisation. The Zythurians adapted quickly, but so did Ethan and Lyra. Every time the enemy tried to corner them, they anticipated the move, turning the situation to their advantage. Ethan realized that this was not just a battle of strength, but a test of wits, patience, and coordination. Lyra glanced at him, her eyes filled with admiration. Human, your species thinks in ways that confound even the most advanced civilizations. Ethan smiled faintly. We're not invincible, but we don't give up. We adapt, we find a way, and we survive. As the battle escalated, Ethan noticed a pattern in the Zythurian movements. They were powerful, yes, but rigid. Their reliance on brute force and predictable tactics made them vulnerable to unconventional strategies. He whispered to Lyra, "We can create a trap, something they won't see coming." Lyra's eyes brightened. "Yes, human, we use their strength against them, clever humans." Ethan activated a sequence that rerouted energy through specific sections of the station, creating false signals that mimicked a critical power failure. Drones were sent to mimic repairs, and lights flashed along hidden corridors. The Zythurians took the bait, sending a portion of their fleet to exploit the apparent weakness. Lyra's device pulsed rapidly. "They are moving exactly as we predicted. Now, human, we strike." Ethan coordinated the drones and energy nets with precise timing. As the Zythurians moved into the trap, the station's automated systems activated in perfect synchronization. The decoy corridors lit up with energy barriers, trapping the enemy ships temporarily, while smaller drones disabled their sensors. It was a victory born not of brute force, but of strategy and creativity. "Impressive human," Lyra whispered. "You lead like a master tactician." Ethan shook his head, smiling through exhaustion. "We work together. Humans think, but we can't do it alone." "Your insight, your technology made this possible." The battle continued late into the day. Each wave of Zythurian ships was met with clever resistance, forcing them to retreat or sustain losses. The station remained intact, and Ethan realized that the key to victory was not destroying the enemy, but making them doubt, hesitate, and exhaust their resources. As night fell, the final wave approached. The Zythurians had learned from their mistakes and were more cautious, but Ethan and Lyra had anticipated this. Every system, every drone, every decoy was in position. It was a culmination of all their planning, ingenuity, and courage. Lyra's voice was calm but determined. "Human, this is the final test. We must act with precision and courage." Ethan took a deep breath. "We've made it this far, now we finish it. Remember, patience, creativity, and teamwork, that's our strength." The Zythurians advanced, their ships scanning for weaknesses. Ethan triggered the decoy sequence, sending false energy pulses across the station's hull. Drones darted unpredictably, mimicking the movements of station engineers. The enemy hesitated, unsure of where the station's true vulnerabilities lay. Lyra adjusted her device, highlighting points of weakness in the Zythurian formation. "Now, human, coordinate drones and energy pulses. Timing must be perfect." Ethan's fingers flew across the control panel, guiding drones, adjusting energy flows, and improvising strategies as the Zythurians responded. The tension was palpable, but Ethan remained focused. Every move had to be precise. Every second counted. The first Zythurian ship fell into the trap, ensnared in an energy net and unable to escape. Others followed, their sensors confused by the false corridors and flashing lights. The Zythurian fleet began to falter, their rigid tactics failing against the unpredictable human strategy. Lyra's glow brightened. "Human, it works. Their formation collapses. Your ingenuity is remarkable." Ethan allowed himself a brief smile. "We're doing it." Together, humans and Velari can face even the strongest enemies. As the battle reached its climax, Ethan devised a final move. He used the station's energy reserves to create a temporary field that mimicked a gravitational anomaly, drawing the remaining Zythurian ships into a confined space. Drones then disabled their systems, one by one, until the fleet was incapacitated. The station was safe. The Zythurians had retreated, defeated not by brute force, but by strategy, ingenuity, and the courage of two species working together. Ethan and Lyra stood side by side, exhausted but victorious. Lyra turned to him, her eyes shimmering with gratitude. "Human, your people are incredible, not strongest in body, but strongest in spirit and mind. I am honored to have fought alongside you." Ethan shook his head, smiling. "It wasn't just me, it was both of us. Humans survive because we think, adapt, and work together, and with friends even across stars, we can overcome anything." They spent the next hours repairing minor damage, analyzing the aftermath, and ensuring the station's systems were stable. Ethan reflected on what had happened. The Zythurians had assumed humans were weak, unprepared, and predictable. They had been wrong. Lyra approached him, her expression softening. "Human, I will return to my people. I will tell them of your courage and ingenuity. Humanity is no longer unknown in the galaxy. You have shown strength beyond measure." Ethan nodded, feeling a deep sense of pride. "And you have shown me that even in the vastness of space, we are not alone. Together, we can face anything." As dawn broke over the distant planet, Ethan looked out at the stars, realizing the significance of what had just occurred. Humans were small, yes, fragile in many ways, but their ingenuity, courage, and determination could shape events on a galactic scale. They could survive, adapt, and even inspire alliances that might protect countless worlds. Lyra stood beside him, her glow reflecting the rising sun. "Human, the future is bright. Together we can achieve greatness." Ethan smiled faintly, exhausted but content. Yes, and sometimes greatness begins with a simple act of kindness. Helping someone, even if they're from another world, can change everything. They stood in silence for a moment, the quiet hum of the station filling the space between them. Outside, the galaxy stretched endlessly, full of challenges, dangers, and wonders. But inside, Ethan and Lyra had proven something profound. Even the smallest beings could face impossible odds and prevail, through courage, intelligence, and the bonds they shared. The stars continued to shine, indifferent to the struggles of small beings within the station. Yet for Ethan, Lyra, and the countless lives that depended on the station's survival, the galaxy had been forever changed. Humans had shown once again that their greatest weapon was not strength or numbers, but the boundless power of ingenuity, determination, and heart. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Zythurians would remember this day, not as a defeat but as a lesson. Never underestimate humans. For Ethan, that was enough. The station hummed peacefully, the threat momentarily passed, the galaxy wide and full of possibility. And humanity, clever, adaptable, brave, was ready to meet it head-on.